Welcome back. We are talking with Fiona Raymond-Cox today about cyber exercises. Fiona, great first and second segment. Now we're going to talk about functional exercises. So the obvious question I have to ask you is, what's a functional exercise?
It's, I'd say, the next level of maturity up from a tabletop exercise. And by that, I mean it's where a person or team actually has to do what they say they're going to do, not simply talk about what they will do. So I was thinking about this a little bit. If you say you're going to send a message to customers, write the message. I am going to tell you that's not so easy. Even if you've got a portfolio of pre-scripted messages, to actually customize a message to the customer and get it through the appropriate approvals takes time. And I think people really overlook that. I'm going to give you another example on the sort of communications piece. If you say you're going to send a message to staff using the emergency notification system, you're going to broadcast a message, well, write that message too. And go one step further, set it up in the system. And I would say, even go one step further from that and blast it out. Because then you can actually almost say you're marrying exercise types together. So, for example, working with a client who's actually wanting us to do some work with them, they want to test their emergency notification system, and so why they need to do it 3 days or a week in advance, I'm not sure. Why not just make it part of your exercise? Even make that part a functional part of a tabletop exercise. So it could be, I'm going to use my emergency notification system to activate the crisis management team, to get them to come into the room. And then I have my tabletop exercise, or I continue with a functional exercise. So I go back to it's where you say where you actually have to do what you say you're going to do. And I'll take it back to the concept of a cyber incident where perhaps you have to get the IT folks investigating the root cause of an incident. So get the actual teams involved and review logs and then share those results. So I'm going to talk about an exercise that we did, again, with this large group of people. What happened is that we got the approval from the CIO and the CTO to take this concept of the tabletop exercise and actually drop some breadcrumbs into all sorts of different systems and applications. And then we got the participants from the IT side to actually have to go in, review logs, see if they could find something that was looking untoward and take action on those little breadcrumbs. So I take my hat off to the organization that was willing to do that. But I actually think that that's taking an exercise, particularly around cyber, to another level where you don't know what's happening in your system. Well, how would you go about, who would do that? And how would you go about it? So I think that's key in determining a functional exercise. We've done many other types of exercises where we've got people out of a building into a common area, broadcast a message to the crisis management team. They've had to convene all the way through to moving people from a location A to location B without their laptops and making sure that location B could set them up and they could work. That's when you say you're going to do something, you have to do it.
So you're taking it from a discussion-based approach to an activity-based approach.
Absolutely. We're seeing how long it all takes.
I like that. I remember years ago, we did a full simulation with the company I was working for, and it was always assumed XYZ would send out this notification blast and do this and that. Well, that was a part of our scope. We were going to do that. And it came to that person and they were like, I don't know how to use this.
See,
Oh,
that's
what?
that's why I actually went through that sort of scenario. You send a message to staff, using the emergency notification system. It's one thing to write a message. It's another thing to actually set up the system. And so the number of people that are not familiar with a task that they've been tasked with, which is blasting out a message to everybody, is a frequent refrain that I hear, that I don't know what to do. And just that alone is a problem. If you then go to that next step, which is we'll send the message and see who responds, that's also good. I'll give you another little example of something that happened. We blasted a message out to the crisis management team to convene once. And I think it was the CFO's wife got a phone call. Her number was in the emergency notification system, not his. So that's a little bit of a problem. So these are the sorts of things that you discover when you actually move from a tabletop exercise, that discussing, to actually performing the activity itself.
Yes,
But
and
they take, these exercises, require time.
yes,
So no doubt about it.
we had one of our tests, and wasn't cyber, but it was a technology related, like a cyber related, a few years back. And we had one of our actions was we'd leave a status update every hour on this phone line for staff to call in and make sure when the business users needed to be on site to do their validation. Well, that took a lot longer than you thought. When we were writing out our statuses, making sure that we had everything said correctly and we weren't saying things we shouldn't say. By the time that approval came around, it was almost time for the next update. We're like, okay, we're changing this hourly thing to 2-3 hours.
Yeah,
It's just crazy,
exactly.
and I can imagine that with a cyber exercise where, let's face it, you hear a cyber exercise and people are going to panic. So I could just imagine using that as the example.
Well, I often find that organizations haven't really considered who their stakeholders are, who are the people that they need to communicate with, and who is going to be allowed to communicate, and does it have to get clearance from legal, and what methodology am I going to use, and am I allowed to take a prescriptive message from the crisis communications team that's been vetted by legal, and am I allowed to tweak it? These are all things that need to be known in advance. So I'm going to say that designing a functional exercise, when we do this, we devote a lot of time. An exercise may take 4 hours or 8 hours, but it's all the legwork in advance that is really the critical piece. So we work with experts in the business to design an exercise that's as realistic as possible, because they know what can go wrong. They know areas of concern. They know how they should respond, hopefully. And so again, working with a really strong team of people to design something that's going to sort of cause maybe heart palpitations for the people that are responding, gives them that sort of energy that would come with a crisis. I think that's really important. So I'd say we allow a longer lead time to plan a functional exercise than we would a tabletop exercise.
Yes. Yeah.
That's without, and we enlist the help of design team members with the requisite skills. So for example, I'm going back to that exercise where we were dropping breadcrumbs into multiple applications. Well, we had ITDR folk and business design teams. We had 2 different groups, and at some point we brought them together to make sure it was all going to work. But that was really helpful. And in the exercise itself, we had multiple conference bridges. Now, this, just so you know, this exercise was supposed to be about 60 odd people participating. By the end, 132 participated in a 7-hour exercise. That's commitment by an organization to really explore their vulnerabilities. There's a lot of takeaways. So from our perspective, it's making sure that you devote sufficient time to that design. Mm-hmm. So a 7-hour exercise was many weeks and months of work in the lead up, but I think it was really successful.
I've been a part of an exercise, 3 countries, 5 data centers, and almost 200 people. That was a lot of planning.
Yeah, I mean, it really does take time. I think a key part is making sure participants know as they're coming into the room, again, the room, virtual or otherwise, what's going to be expected of them is a key facet in all of this.
We've only got 2 minutes left, and I really want to ask you this question. With these functional exercises for cyber, what are your thoughts on involving third parties or key parties in these kind of exercises?
Yeah, good idea. I think that's a great question. Why not? I mean, I've worked with clients where they brought in their external comms people. I've done exercises where the insurance brokers have been brought in, outside parties. I mean, cyber, it does involve legal advice that perhaps has been outsourced to a particular company. I mean, I think it's a really good idea, to bring in those outside parties where you can. I think it goes back to be very clear about what's the objective of the exercise. One thing that we often do is have these exercises require more facilitators and definitely encourage observers to evaluate the success. An outside party who doesn't have a vested interest is actually really quite good at giving some great feedback.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I'm participating in an exercise next week where actually I'm not participating, I'm observing. I have nothing to do with the exercise itself. And giving a third party opinion is never a bad idea. So the only other thing I'd like to end with,
go ahead.
We've got 1 minute, is I think it's really critical that when you articulate to your participants that you're running an exercise, what type of exercise it is. If it's a tabletop exercise, people are going to come prepared to talk through how they should respond. If you sell it as a functional exercise, then you're going to tell them they have to perform the activities that they're saying they're going to do. If you're running a functional exercise and people come thinking it's a tabletop exercise, you're not going to get the engagement that you really had hoped for.
And I think that's a perfect area to end today's show. Fiona, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation. And I know getting you on the show is long overdue. And so it's great to finally have you here.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It's been my pleasure.
My pleasure. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on cyber exercises. And everyone watching and listening, stay prepared, everybody. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody. Now we're going to change a little bit and we're going to talk. I'll have to edit this piece out.
Oh, just start again.
I totally forgot what I was going to say. Let me start over.